Hi Scott, thanks so much for coming in today and talking to us about the study of the classical world.
My pleasure.
Could you start by explaining to us or giving us a bit of an insight into why it's important for us to study the classical period?
Sure, well that's a pretty big question really, but the classical period, and specifically I think the classical Greek and Roman periods, are where a lot of the foundations of our laws, democracy was first trialled there, the foundations of our philosophy, our art, all talk back to this time. And like studying any history, it's important to learn those systems and processes and what's gone before so that we know where we're going in the future.
So say you've brought with you a few items for us to look at today. Greek vases are given quite a strong significance in the study of the classical Greek world. Could you tell us why that is? What's the role of the Greek vases?
Well, I think one thing is that they've survived. So, these vases are made of pretty hardy material, and unlike, for example, wood sculpture and paintings and things like that, which are a bit more transient, these tend to last. They are sometimes buried on purpose and survive that way. But also they call back to the bits of writing that have survived. So the great tragedies and the comedies, from those we get things like descriptions of the great heroes and the gods and how the average person lived. And then in the vase painting, we can see that the Greek vase painters often painted either mythological stories or just very everyday things as well. A great example is the small Arabolis there with the modelled African head, which tells us a lot about contact with the African and the Nubian people post the time of Alexander the Great.
So it's really a record of how people lived in that time and the beliefs and traditions that were special to them.
Yeah. And the paintings, it's so vibrant, it's often so naturalistic, especially in the later pieces. You really do get a good idea of even hairstyles and clothes and what people were wearing,
Awesome. I've noticed with these two pieces that you've brought in that there is a difference. One has red figures on it and the other has black figures. Is that a purposeful difference?
Yeah, we call that red figure and black figure.
Right. Catchy names.
That is a purposeful difference. There are two different techniques and slightly different technologies in Greek vase painting.
Right.
The black figure is the earlier one, which is the larger of the two vases here. They're both fired the same way, but the way that they kind of built up to the firing process is quite different. So on the black figure, you paint out your black figures and then you might incise details into it by scratching into it, the drape of clothes and things like that. Whereas with the red figures, they painted everything but left the red areas blank for firing, and then they paint the details onto it. So if you look at the two vases in comparison, you'll see that, for example, the expression of the person riding the horse and the detail on the horses are a lot more advanced than what you could get in black figure painting.
Right.
These two vases actually aren't too different in time. The big one is very late black figure, and it's right at the height of that technology. They're starting to push the boundaries of what they can do in that medium. Whereas the red figure one, although not actually, I think, a great artist on the red figure one, you can already see that they've managed to, for example, put one of the horse's faces in 3/4, which would be very difficult to do in black figure vase painting.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.